Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, we could really use your help. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, recently named the Too Opinionated podcast one of its top 100 podcasts. This is a monumental feat for this program. We're a father and son team out of a small town in West Virginia, have been doing this for about 5 years. There's 15 million podcasts out there. About 40,000 of those get to the point that they're listed on IMDb. Out of those 40,000 out of the 15 million, we were ranked number 82. Something that we're just immensely proud of. We're so thankful for our listeners, our watchers, our fans. Thank you so, so much. If you would like to help us out, and we're asking for it, please. It's easy. It's really easy. It's free. If you go to IMDb, that's imdb.com, look up Too Opinionated Podcast, and just take a look at the page. That's all you have to do. I mean, you're welcome to look at the cast, look at the episodes so you can kind of see who's been on the program. Do whatever you want. But even just bringing up the page, imdb.com, Too Opinionated Podcast, bring up the page, look at it. That helps us so much. So please, if you can do anything, we would really appreciate that. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Love to have your subscription there. It's also free. And you can also check out our website, meistercon.com, where you'll find almost 700 episodes, audio and video, available on there. There's also a terrific blog from Brett, and it'll let you know anything that we have going on in studio, if we're covering a convention, if we're going on location, anything that we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so, so much. We appreciate you so much. I can't express enough how appreciative we are of all of you. We never expected to do as well as we have, and that's all because of you. Thank you so much. Enjoy that interview. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I've got comedian, scam hunter, Ryan Kelly with me. So welcome, Ryan.
Hello. Happy to be here. Thanks so much, Mike.
I'm pretty sure that's the first time I've had to say scam hunter.
Right. It's a rare one. And the hyphen with comedian makes it weirder, to be honest. It
sounds like I'm saying you're looking for scam comedians.
Yeah, right. Well, there's plenty of those, but I'm just out there hunting people that steal jokes. No, it's more along the scams is like everything you've seen, those USPS texts, the romance scams, anything that would target people. I tend to hunt them. So it's been fun.
See, I love that because, a lot of times those scams prey on the older population.
Yes, they do.
You hear about them. You're always like, I'd never fall for that. But then you do.
There's the thing. That's what gets so many people is everybody's so confident and cocky. I'd never fall for that. I'd never fall for that. And then you immediately fall for that. And honestly, like these guys, to give them credit, like a lot of the social engineering that they do is like pretty well done. And especially like sometimes it gets really fancy with the way they can make emails look like they've been copied from something else or cloned pages. And I've seen pretty much all of it. You know what's weird? Gen Z actually gets scammed more than boomers, more than grandparents.
That's surprising.
You would, but they spend more time online. But also what I see a bunch of it is blackmail for explicit photos. People will get online, they'll pretend to be someone that's interested, they'll ask for photos, and then they'll blackmail. And I see 5 to 8 of those a day.
Well, and that doesn't surprise me because that generation especially, they're much freer with those type of photos and stuff. So I could see where they could get talked into maybe sending something that might, in the larger scheme, then they might panic and be like, oh yeah, I probably don't want people to see that.
Yeah. That's the thing is it's, I've seen a whole bunch of random things that it's like, I almost straight in here from West Virginia, so you might appreciate this, but I say like treat a camera like a like firearm safety, only point it at something you don't want to be there anymore. Like that's like because otherwise it could go off. You never know where, you never know why. And yeah, so treat your cameras like barrels. Don't point them at things.
It's kind of terrible that we can't just all go on and use social media,
Yeah.
good reasons, positive reasons, but we don't. We get on there and we get political, or we give, the negative opinions on stuff, or we spout a lot of hate speech or stuff, or we try to scam somebody. It's terrible.
It is. There's so much like, God, I've seen it all over the place. I've seen scams, all the hate. I've seen, gosh, you've seen what's bordering on like terrorist activities. And you're like, what is going on? And then I'm some dork in Missouri who's just playing on my computer. It's like, this is a lot. Yeah, but no, it's weird. The internet is for so much good, but can also be used for so much bad. I met a buddy online when I was like, God, I was probably like 13. We were playing video games together.
Yeah.
He was 14, and we played games together for like a decade, and then I stood in his wedding, which I think was so cool.
That's
of just
amazing.
Like a wholesome internet story,
Yeah, we don't get enough of those.
No, I don't think we do. God, no. No, you always get the things where, gosh, that's the thing is it feels like, especially, and I think Too Opinionated as a podcast will appreciate this. Everybody feels like we need to put out our opinions, or we need to, especially on, I found text-based mediums, like whether it be threads, Twitter, comment sections. For some reason, text-based is so much more popular to go negative with, which I just find fascinating. I honestly don't understand it yet, but
I've been trying to figure that out too, because if, we post a ton of stuff, and
for sure,
you never get the negatives except in the comments usually. And
yeah,
but it's not negative comments about the content we're putting up. It's usually about something that they're trying to tie in to the content. It's usually political.
Yeah. No, I see a ton of that where like I don't talk religion or politics at all.
Same.
Like I keep all my stuff completely off of that, just because it's like I want everybody who's coming to watch my content, especially if it's like scam busting and can help people. I don't want them to be put off by me putting a weird spin on it for them.
Well, and honestly, nobody cares.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that like I don't know. I just like, look, if you're coming to me for tech tips, you probably should. And I'm a stand-up comedian. You should not take my political or social like opinions. Like I'm just a goofy boy like who wants people to smile. I'm just not great at that. So that's why I avoid it. But regardless of it, I just feel like, yeah, it's weird. Me and my roommate, we used to, so he was I'm from Missouri, went to Christian school for 18 years, and make some jokes about that. He is from Texas. He went to Muslim school. His parents are from Yemen.
Oh, I'd watch this show if you wanted to make that a sitcom.
I know, right? We had so much fun. And it was just like this silly stuff that we do. But man, people would all of a sudden try to make it so political. It's like, no, we're just two dorky guys like having fun. That's right. It. Like, what's the angle? No angle.
No
just
angle.
Like, yeah.
We're roommates.
Yeah, that's it. So
how did you get into the scam busting? And what does that mean to scam bust?
Yeah, so I got scammed. I feel like that's how it always starts with people, is when it's just like, man, I was getting ready to move back from Los Angeles, and I'd worked at Disneyland for a little while, and Disney has something called the Disney Aspire program, and they would pay 100% for your college education. I already had 2 bachelors, and so they paid for my master's degree.
You did a little Spider-Man work there.
Yes, I did. Yep.
I put myself through college as I owned a couple comic book stores, so I'm a comic book guy. So you getting to play Spider-Man, I'm like, that's the coolest ever.
Oh, it was such a dream come true. And like, I got to be Spider-Man, a stormtrooper, like an entertainment host, and occasionally Tigger. And
awesome.
It was great. And that was a lot of fun. But also they would, pay for so I got my master's degree in Homeland Security while I was being Spider-Man. So it's like you fight
that kind of cracks
crime.
me up that you've got a master's in Homeland Security, but you're a stand-up comedian.
Look, my parents are very confused. I have some questions to answer. Like this is, I always describe my career, and I actually just posted a video about it recently. It's, if you've seen Toy Story, this isn't flying, it's falling with style. Like that's that's all this is. But so I had a good baseline with kind of like, with kind of how crime worked, how money works, like in crime, because of the Homeland Security stuff. And then I got scammed when I was getting ready to move back. I was in charge of getting my car shipped, and I reached out to a company that's supposed to be like a really trusted broker, but the problem is they set me up with a scammer, and they didn't mean to. Yeah, and so I'm like,
they got scammed.
Yeah, so they got scammed, but because they got scammed, I got scammed, and I lost $712.50. And everybody sees the numbers
Ouch.
of like the follower count, and they're like, oh, they must make crazy money. They don't. Like ask anybody
It
that
doesn't
does
always
TikTok.
correlate.
No, and I try, like, I go to weddings for free. Like, I do most of the scam busting stuff, like totally pro bono, unless a company wants to pay me for it. Like, so I don't, it's not like I'm just flush with cash. And when that happened, I was like, I am so sad and so disappointed. But because I'm a stand-up comedian, I just work at nights. I was like, I got time, you know?
That's right.
So by the end of the first day, I had the driver's license, home address, the people that they were working with, all that fun stuff. And I sent it to their local FBI office. I called them and I was like, hey, I've got all this information. They're like, why do you have all this information? I was like, reason, kicks and gigs. And I explained what happened to him. And it's funny, the FBI agent, no joke, just immediately went, dude, that just happened to me. And I was no. Why?
That doesn't fill you with confidence.
No, it doesn't at all. Why is the FBI being like, man, we get scammed like that too? Son of a gun. Like that's. So I was like, okay. And then I ended up putting it all together. And I actually reached out to because I was not getting help from the company that did it. But I reached out to their CEO on LinkedIn. And I was like, hey, man, this is what happened. Your customer service like kind of sucks. Like, can you hook me up? And he did. He actually he gave me my money back. And I was like, wow, like super cool, super responsive CEO. I was like, did not see that coming, but was very thankful.
That's awesome.
Rare. Now after that,
but awesome.
Rare. Yeah, I know. I was shocked and still am. I will say what was interesting is after that, a lot of people saw the videos that I was putting out online. It got multiple millions of views. And I was like, oh, people are getting scammed all the time. And then my aunt, someone tried to scam my 79-year-old Aunt Anne. And I was like, game on. And so since then, I've set up multiple fake accounts on multiple platforms. And I've created a whole bunch of different systems that I run to try to mess with scammers. Now, whether that be wasting their time and that's more like scam baiting, wasting their time, annoying them. That's what a lot of people call scam baiting. I like the scam busting and hunting side of it because we go a little deeper than that. So if you've ever seen somebody like James Veach, who used to do it for, I want to say Mashable. Yeah. His stuff is very much like the scam busting or scam baiting thing. I'm definitely not on the skill level of them, but I definitely have a little more tech stuff of like Jim Browning, Scammer Payback, where they get to go mess with them. And I love that. So I try to find the happy medium between tech savvy, social engineering, which is honestly most of what I do, and then comedy of like, here's why it's silly, or here's the funny things I've sent them. And that's been really great. Yeah.
You have to be the only comedian, scam hunter, Homeland Security guy out there.
I mean, I'd be shocked if there was others. I'm not sure. It's funny. I have a friend in comedy, and her boyfriend, who is also a comedian, he actually writes malware.
Really?
So he actually, so weirdly enough, I know one other guy who does it, but no, I think I'm hoping it's a pretty niche field, like that. Not too many people are getting their Homeland Security degrees and like, well, time for jokes. Like that's insane.
I watched this guy on social media, and this is the career path that I'm choosing.
Yes, exactly. I saw him do it. It's fine. It works out. Don't do this. It does not work out. It is. I still don't know what's happening.
Have you ever had somebody that you have gotten back, I guess? Have they ever come after you after that? Or do they try to get you again? Is it like a weird game of tag?
Sometimes. Yeah. I most of the time they're not particularly tech savvy. I've had when I had some phones that were active.
Isn't that surprising? That a lot of the scammers actually aren't that tech savvy?
No, and that's the thing is everybody calls it scamming and they picture it being, tech related, but it's really not. That's why these scammers are still able to bust through McAfee, ESET, like all these programs, is because they're preventing you from getting malware, which is great for like ransomware, government, and possibly like businesses. But for your average mom and pop, doesn't matter. It's social engineering. And that's what I target. And that's what I use against them is their own strategies. I set myself up to look like the perfect victim for them. And then they become more comfortable. We create that rapport. And that's when I pull the rug out from under them. And it's really fun. I have a great time with it.
It's probably very, very satisfying after.
It is, especially if like everything goes to plan. So for instance, like I have a couple backup phones to like because I'll be able to like put different SIM cards in and things like that, and essentially call through other numbers because I don't want to like attach that to my main cell phone. I think we all get enough spam calls already. I don't want them, doing that. I had one guy. It was a call center that was set up. It was in India, and they were pretending to be PayPal, and they send you a fake PayPal thing, and they say, "Hey, call this number if this doesn't look right." Of course, it wouldn't look right because you didn't buy that. Now it's not PayPal's phone number. They had set up a full call center to mimic PayPal, and they could take dozens of calls at a time. I mean, it's super impressive. Like that's a lot going on there. So, and what they do is the scam was, okay, we need to connect you to PayPal's servers so that we can make sure that your account is fine. That makes no sense, by the way. Like from a tech perspective, you do not need to do that. So they'd have you download something like AnyDesk, or there's another one that they tried to get me to use at one point. And what it'll do is it'll let them take control of your computer.
That's right.
Which can be helpful for like, if you're working abroad or something like that. But for this situation, does not make sense. And so I kept messing with him. I kept essentially spinning him in circles. And he essentially, he at the end of the call, he swore at me, and then he called me back. And then I was just like, dude, why did you even think this was going to work? So I start making fun of him as we're doing like on the second round. And I was like, oh, this is great. But that's awesome. No, had a couple. One of my favorites has got to be, there was a guy, he was scamming a guy's father, and the father was in his 60s, and he was just like, he just fallen for the scam of like trying to help someone, but it was just not working and like losing tons of money. And at that point, I was just like, dude, like, okay. So I went after that guy, and I was able to pull his IP, which then gave me his device, which then gave me his home address. And so once I'm at home address, that's always kind of fun because it's like, do you live here? Like, and that'll. So here's the thing: in most of these countries, like they're not going to prosecute it, but if I can make you,
make you worry a little bit at least.
Yeah. I just want you to not feel as smooth as you thought you were.
Yeah.
And so I sent him his address, and I go, this is you. Leave them alone. And he just said something to the effect of, well, why don't you tell me where you live, and then we'll see who's afraid. And I was like, dude, you know what's funny? I don't have to tell you where I live, and you don't have to tell me where you live, because I know. That's right. It was just like, oh, that was wild. And you know what's weird about that one is actually he went to the victim of the crime, and the victim of the crime emailed me, or the fake account, and was like, stay out of my business. Like this is my friend. I'm trying to help. And it's like, dude, it's the craziest thing is how far in the sunk cost fallacy people can get. I think it was it's a Mark Twain quote that I'm sure I'm going to butcher. Let me see if I can. It's because it's such a good quote about this. It's easier it's easier to fool people than it is to convince them that they have been fooled. And I think that is such an interesting. Yeah, and I totally see it all the time. That's what's the sad thing is when you're just like,
nobody wants to admit that they've been tricked.
No, and there's so much stigma behind like all of this stuff of like, oh, you're stupid, oh, you're dumb. I have had multiple PhDs reach out to me and been like, I got scammed. So like, you're not dumb.
Well, it's
like
that you get scammed when your guard's down.
Yes, it's honestly, and I actually think that this kind of goes into some of the stuff I studied in Homeland Security was like cults and kind of like, groups that were radicalized. And a lot of it is you're like, how did you get here? You know what I mean? Like what happened that led you to this? And it's all desperation. It's all need. I want to say in Jonestown, Waco. So I've been actually to the Waco compound. By the way, the Branch Davidians, they're still there.
Really?
Like yes.
Yeah, you don't hear anything about it anymore.
No, they're super quiet. Like they mostly keep to themselves, but it's weird because I went in there and I just acted like I had no idea what was going on. I was like, oh, this is nice. This is great. And so they start telling me all the things they believe, and it just gets like
Wow.
They still believe a lot. And it's and I was like, okay. But what's crazy is I want to say it was like the first uh Harvard educated black doctor, or like or
Okay.
who's Harvard. I think it was a PhD. I think he was a lawyer. Um, was one of the people killed in the Waco siege.
Oh,
And you're like, he's like like a brilliant lawyer. Like obviously, like if you're the first of something, you probably went through quite a
right.
bit to get there.
Yeah. How did
And
that happen?
his kids were sick. If you look at like, and so he wanted to believe that like that Vernon Wayne Howell or David Koresh could heal his kids. And so it's that type of thing where it's just
I
wow.
get that. Desperation as a parent, I completely understand.
Absolutely.
And shame on anybody that takes advantage of that. That's terrible.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you where it's like that's what's crazy when you see medical scams, or you know what, the ones that drive me crazy, the job hunting scams, where they will set you up and they will take advantage of people that are just looking for work, like that are really trying to just get a job and do
Yeah.
work and
Just
provide
get
for
a leg
themselves.
up.
Yeah. And they will make them, buy some sort of thing for the company or something so that they can work from home or something like that. And they just run away with the money. And it's like, I hate those guys. They're
Yeah,
the
that's
worst.
terrible.
Yeah.
We used to
Yeah.
get I years ago, I ran the fraud department for Ticketmaster.
No.
and,
Oh
and
my God.
and we would get the weirdest attempts to scam
Mhm.
Ticketmaster. I'm like, what are you doing?
I can't believe that you ran the front. Man, you have probably seen the weirdest
I've seen
things.
some weird stuff, and it was, strangely enough, it was late 90s, early 2000s when this was going on. And we started the fraud department for Ticketmaster as a company in Charleston, West Virginia. And it was small. It was like me and 6 people for the whole company. Now, since then, now it's like an entire call center.
Yeah,
They
I'm
have,
sure it
and
has to be.
it's in LA, I think is where they do it out of now. But at that time, it's not that long ago, 20 years ago, but it was like
Yeah.
right in that juncture when the internet was just really getting going. You were
Mhm.
still mostly buying tickets by phone or in person. And
Yep.
yeah. So,
You,
and we got a lot of scammers. Now, a lot of it was just scalpers trying to buy up tickets so they could resell, which strangely enough, Ticketmaster now buys up their own tickets and resells them as a third party, kind of like a scalper, but it's their own tickets. So
they've scalped themselves.
they've scalped
Like that.
themselves, which is, I think, it's kind of brilliant, but maybe a
Yeah.
little iffy.
Yeah, yeah. Very smart, ethically,
Yeah, a
but
little
like
iffy.
very smart.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and as a social media presence,
Mhm.
what we get now is the ones like, we want to advertise on your page.
On your Facebook,
Yeah, Facebook.
they're
It's
all
all Facebook.
always Facebook. Yeah, and you know what's funny? They're all coming out of Pakistan, and I know because I've pinged them all.
Always. Yeah, always.
Which is weird because every grouping kind of has its own like specialty. Like those Facebook ones, heavily Pakistan. You get the sextortion tends to be heavily Nigeria. You get romance scams. It tends to be Nigeria, but also the Philippines and Canada. Weirdly enough, I've found
That is
most like
weird.
moving company cases are tend to be local in the U.S. for us, and then call centers, fake call centers. And so yeah, it's weird. It's weird how different places specialize in different crimes. It's like, did you guys all get the book? What happened? Like,
Yeah.
this is weird.
Or
Yeah.
do you get the it's the fake account on Facebook that wants to be
Oh
your
yeah.
friend? I'm like, do people just click on friend request? They don't look to see, like a big giveaway is if it's obviously a female account,
Uh-huh.
but it'll say so and so has updated his profile, or vice versa. And you're
Yep.
like,
Yeah.
or you go look, and they went like a year and a half with posting nothing, and then all of a sudden on the same day they posted like 10 times.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, come on.
What's going on here? No, there are definitely some dead giveaways that I've learned that it's just like I've seen some really funny ones that are just like how did you even think this was close? Like I had a God, I had one recently that was like someone was trying to scam like Christian singles, and it says really like devoted Christian. And then afterwards it had the emoji for the cross, and then immediately after that it had the emoji of the crescent and star. And I was like, that's Islam. That's not even the same religion. What are you doing? Like I just it blows my mind.
It's like, come on, scammers, do better.
There are seriously sometimes where I'm like, one of my favorites has got to be from the Supreme of Courts. Love that. Just love the fact that like
Supreme of Courts.
Yeah, wow. I thought we had a Supreme Court. I didn't know we have the Supreme of Courts.
No, that's the level above.
Yeah, that's the step up. Yeah, so it's fun. I've gotten to see some just wild ones that are just like my favorite are celebrity impersonators. Those are so funny to me. I've seen Toby Keith, Niall Horan, Mike Rowe. Like no matter who it is, it's just so silly because you get to mess with them, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, well, you even get those that kind of create the accounts as a celebrity on Facebook and try to do stuff with it, and I'm like, surely nobody is going to fall for that, but people do
all the time. And that's what's crazy is like a lot of it tends to be romance and things like that. And it's almost kind of like the idea of like, of like buying into the lottery, like, but thinking you're definitely going to win. Like, I understand like buying a ticket because it's like, oh, this is fun, but like knowing that it's not going to happen. But it's almost like people view sometimes the lottery in the same way they view this is like, oh, it's my way out. It's my way. I can just go live a perfect life and do this perfect thing. And it's like, why do you think like, I don't know. It's really tough sometimes because a lot of times you're fighting against ignorance, and it's really hard to do that because you just want to like, you just want to help people.
You can't a lot of times get through that.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely tried to help some people that at a certain point I've been like, I don't know what you like. I've asked. There was this one person who reached out to me, and I like asked, okay, where did this happen on? And it was just, this is what happened. And I was like, I know that's what happened. Where did this happen on? And I like tried like 4 different times to just get the platform. And I just wouldn't give it to him. But I was like, I can't help you. Like, this is like, I just need basic information to get rolling. And if you can't provide that, I get why you got scammed. Like, this is the problem. Like, yeah.
Well, those are usually the type that think that commenting on a post is the same as sending somebody a message. They just don't get social media. You know, they're probably older and just struggle with it. Don't really understand how it works.
I think so. I don't know. You know what? I would love to attribute it to like olderness, but like, and like maybe like not growing up with the tech. But I see a lot of young people doing the same thing where people are like, I do a case and then I do another case and they're like, oh, too bad he couldn't help me with mine. And it's like, I never got yours. I've gotten over 4,000 scam submissions. Yeah, yours probably fell through the crack. Like and that's in just a couple of months. That's not,
and you're just scratching the surface there.
Yeah. And so
it's like, I understand what you're saying, but Tom Cruise needs my help right now.
Yeah.
It's stuck somewhere, broke down. I have to wire him some money.
I have to wire some money. Can you let me know if this is real? It's like, dude, I don't know. And plus it's like you commented on one TikTok. I don't I tend to read my comments at the beginning, but then I don't because then, it starts getting attacked by a lot of people. So, you for your own mental health, I just read through the submission form I have for scams because it's very much just the information I need. I ask you all the things, I take all the information and we go from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's easier.
So how did all of that lead to stand-up comedy?
Oh, stand-up comedy was first.
Okay. See, that makes more sense. I was trying to figure out, he's doing this. How did that inspire him to go get up on stage?
No, I was actually, so weirdly enough, like I don't make money through scamming or like scam busting. I pay my bills through stand-up, and I've been a stand-up comedian for quite a few years now. I did improv before that. I've spent way too much money.
Stuff's funny.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate
it's really good. And I've always enjoyed, watching comedians. Most of them kind of fail to live up to the hype. I thought your stuff was hilarious. I
am honored that I've at least lived up to the hype. I want to at least attempt that. We've had a lot of fun with it, man. I've done improv, and that kind of helped me get into the writing mode. And then in college, I started doing stand up, and after that, TikTok really started taking off, and so I got to film my first special, which is now out and available. It's called Girlfriends and Girlfriends, one word then 2 words, and it I didn't date well for a while, and so I was like, well, let's figure out why this is going wrong. I realized I didn't say it in a special, but I should have. That because I said it on a different podcast recently where I was like, yeah, I realized like the weird part is like one of the things that I do for scamming is social engineering, and how I got into that is because I was dating this girl and it was just terrible, and I didn't like it at all. I was like, ah. And so, like, you read all those like relationship books to try to like figure out what relation, and none of them were helpful. And so instead, I was like, wait, I know what type of behavior this is. And so I bought a book on hostage negotiation. And that should be the sign to leave the relationship, by the
Yeah,
way.
that's
Like,
that's a flag.
yeah, that's a flag, a big red flag. But instead I was like, oh man, this is really working now. And I was like, oh man, this is, yeah. If you buy a book on hostage negotiation for your relationship and it starts working, you might not want to, you might want to dip. So, and weirdly enough, it paid off now because I use it against scammers, and that's very fun. Yeah.
Weird. I believe life works that way. You know, you go through stuff, you learn stuff that you think, well, that was useless. And then at some point it's not.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I think that especially when I was much younger, my parents would always say like things like that will happen. And I was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what are the odds? But man, I have seen too many parts of my life that are too cyclical for it, like not to, and cyclical in a positive way. They're obviously moving forward, but like that they come back around in good ways. And no, it's been great. I really do believe that.
I always tell this story that, you know, I told you I owned comic book stores when I was in college, and that continued up until, you know, my late 20s, you know, and I'll tell you why it stopped real quick. 1996, Marvel went bankrupt, and I was like, it's over. So I got out, and then of course, you know, they came back stronger than ever. So you know, that's another story. But when I had that comic store near the end, so it was probably mid 90s, you know, my wife came into the store. She's a little younger than I am, on a date, first date with her soon to be husband, right? In my store. That was their first date. I don't even remember her being there, but my mother happened to be in the store that day and she remembered it. Now, admittedly, back in the 90s, you didn't get a lot of women in a comic book store. That's changed, but back then it was mostly guys. But so she remembered that. Well, then years later, we were both working at Ticketmaster, and both of us married, different people. What? Over the course of a few more years, we both got divorced, you know, and then a few more years after that, we were both so miserable and lonely that we shared the same boss, and he individually went to each of us and said, you know, that Mike guy, maybe you should think about going out with him. Did the same thing with me. You know, that Emily, you should check that out. And we were both desperate enough that we're like, fine, let's just try. You know, that was 18 years ago, and we're still together. But it just always stuck with me that, you know, 10 years prior to that, she came into my life. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And came back around.
I love that. I think that is so. Also, what a good wingman your boss was. Look at him.
I know. I mean, I still thank him for that. I'm like, hey, you were right.
You nailed it, man. Yeah, that's. You know what's funny? My grandpa, I want to say on my dad's side, they owned army surplus stores like after the wars and like after World War II, and then continuing in like past Korea. And at one point, like my dad, he used to go like because his parents were divorced, and so he would like go and like he essentially needed to occupy himself, and it was like he was kind of like the proto latchkey kids, and so he would so he'd just go like and he'd go hang out in the store and hang out with his uncles and things like that. And they have a photo of my mom when she was really little in because you know the army surplus stores, they used to sell everything, so it was like, you know, you could go get like anything that you needed, including like shovels. And my grandfather on my mom's side was super like handy, and so my grandmother was in there with my mom while my dad as a kid was bouncing around in those stores. And it's just like you do wonder how many times you've passed these people in your life, you know, like how many times you pass them on the freeway, how many times, how close were you in so many different ways, you know?
I always think about that stuff. You know, if you know, when strangely enough, my father was my mother's high school social studies teacher. So you couldn't,
Okay.
right? That's when they started dating. And he did, you couldn't do that today. But so
Yeah.
he went to her dad, asked if it
Uh-huh.
was all right if he could ask her out. And of course they
Uh-huh.
went through they were chaperoned the whole time, all that stuff. But he was torn over whether to ask because of the parent or the teacher student relationship. And I always
Yeah.
wondered about that. What if he didn't ask? Then
Yeah.
none of us would be here. My brother's got 4 kids. I've got 4 kids. I've got 5 grandkids. None of that would have happened if he had just
Wow.
chickened out and been like, "Oh, that's too weird. I'm not doing that."
That is wild. That is crazy to think about. And wow. Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine like that. Yeah.
I
It
mean, you
is
couldn't
weird
get
how
away with that today. I mean, you'd be
no,
torn apart.
like no, you would be fired so
Yeah.
quickly. And also like I do think, a different time, but
I mean,
obviously
they've been
like
together now 60 years, so I guess it was probably the right
I guess
call.
it worked out. I also assume that he was probably a much younger teacher.
Oh, he
than
was.
like
They were actually not that far apart in age.
okay, that's an incredibly heartening thing to hear. But yeah, no, it is weird though. You do think about like how many little parts of your life, or even in your grandparents' lives, or the
Yeah.
people before them's, like it's weird that we're here. Like if you
really
roll the
is.
dice on it, yeah,
A lot of
let's go.
things had to happen in a certain sequence in order for us to be here.
Yeah, gosh, it's
I don't
what
know
is it
how
though?
we got off on, this stuff, but it's kind of interesting when you think about it.
It is. Oh, it definitely is. I want to say it's like if people there's a really interesting statistic out there, and I'd butcher it if I tried to come up with it now, but like the amount of generations that have passed since like Rome, it's like not as many as you'd think. You know what I mean? Like on
Yeah.
a flip end of it,
Well, it couldn't
like
be that many if what a generation's 20 years, something like that.
oh yeah, here I'm gonna do. No, wait, hold on.
3
Oh no,
generations.
Gene, I said yeah. Let me see. About so between 0, like AD, um, and now they're claiming it's roughly about 101.
Yeah, that's why it's like 20 years a generation.
Yeah,
So it's probably like 100 or so.
it
doesn't seem like that much, really.
Yeah, no, not at all. Because you could easily think about 100 people, and so you're like, oh, that's not that many people.
I always do that with like the Civil War here in the States. That was not that long ago. It's been a
No.
little while, but it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been that
like
is
when
weird.
my grandparents were young, they probably listened to stories from their parents that were alive during the Civil War.
Yeah. No, that is crazy to think about. I also think about, especially like when I was growing up, and like you had like World War II, it was kind of that way for me, where it was just like, you knew like a lot of people's grandparents had fought, like both of my grandpas had fought. Like it was one of those things that you just knew people, and that it's
well, when I was growing up in the 70s, World War II just happened.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, you're like, think about it, it's 30 years at that point.
Yeah. So everybody knows a parent, a grandparent, or an uncle that fought, served in some way, or was there. Yeah.
It just kind of, when you think about it, you're like, I guess we have come a long way. Mm-hmm. But in some respects, that was not that long ago. You think we would have had some of that figured out sooner than we did.
You think so? It is funny. You're like, man, we've come so far so quickly. Like, I mean, you just think about like rocket tech and phones and all that stuff. But then you also think like, and we still got a lot of things to work on. Like this is I thought this would have been figured out.
We got a long way to go. I mean, it's the same way with just the equality for everybody. You think by now we'd have it figured out, and we don't.
No, not even close. Like that does make you think, where it's like, man, and then it's crazy because you see like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. One of my degrees is in international relations, and God, you just look around and you're like, we don't internationally relate to each other well. You know what I mean? Like that's
we do not.
No. And you see like, a couple steps forward, things are going well, and then you see there's a coup, and it's like, son of a gun. Like We were so close.
Well, yeah, this year has taught us, especially. I mean, you got wars breaking out and stuff, and I thought we were done with that nonsense, and here we are.
You'd think, and obviously it's the one that we'd probably all think about. But weirdly enough, I read so much international news that, I mean, you even look at like a coup in Niger, and then like you look at Venezuela, which just voted
Venezuela's
to
the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, Venezuela just voted to like annex part of Guyana, and Guyana's like, "Hey, we're here."
It'd be kind of like Ohio saying, "Yeah, we're going to annex this part of West Virginia."
Yeah.
Parkersburg now belongs to Ohio.
Yeah, for no reason. Yeah, well, I guess they did fight over Michigan and them for Toledo, which I love. Michigan fought Ohio for Toledo, and then in the end, they got part of Wisconsin. And Wisconsin had to be like, what the heck?
Yeah, how'd this happen?
Yeah, how did we lose? We weren't even there.
Well, yeah, if you look at Michigan on a map, it is kind of strange.
It is. The UP, I've been there. It's beautiful, but it's confusing. Like, yeah.
Well, so have you been, like, did you have the normal, stand-up comedian rise of having to go through failing for a while before you had the tight, set that worked?
Oh yeah. I mean, I still fail now. And I feel like every time you write a new set, you go through the failing and then they're trying to figure it out. And it was actually something that was incredibly heartening to me. Is I just got into LA. It was my very first like week there. And a buddy of mine said, "Hey, there's this open mic that like takes place in this theater. And they sometimes bring in like really cool comedians." And I went in and I couldn't see because it was super dark. And I physically ran into Dimitri Martin, who is multiple Netflix specials, hilarious, like one of the best one-liner guys ever.
He's funny.
He's so funny. Yeah. And it's funny. We both apologized, which was good to know that he is just as awkward as I am. And he goes up there. Don't get me wrong. He's got some jokes that kill, but he had some jokes that he was like, "And I'll never tell that one again," because he's working on new material.
Yeah. Well, that's why they do the smaller clubs, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You always do like, smaller clubs, smaller shows just to test so that you're moving with it. And I think it was really heartening to see that. And yeah, since then, I mean, you figure out kind of your set and you keep rolling through it, and then you figure out more jokes, and then you add those, and then you maybe subtract other things that are taking too long. But at the end of the day,
it's the only profession where you actually, go into it knowing you're going to fail because you're testing the material. I mean, you don't have any other profession where you're like, let me test this out and see how it works before.
I mean, thank God doctors don't do that.
Yeah,
like,
right. That's what I mean. It'll be like, I'm just going to test this surgical procedure out. Let's just see how this works.
Yeah, feels new. I mean, I guess at some point they do, like,
well, they have to at some point.
But yeah, no, most of the time it feels like this is a career based around failure. And that's, that can be both very fun when it doesn't fail, but also, that can be a lot. That can be a lot on people. And so that's why you see a lot of comedians that are like very depressed. And I thankfully try to diversify myself enough to like not worry about those things and do other things. And I try to aim for a happy, wholesome approach to it.
Well, since you're on the inside, if you could get them to start comedy shows at like 6 o'clock in the evening, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll start posting or like pitching it to them.
Who came up that it had to be 10 or 11 o'clock at night before we could bring it? Who did? That's hard.
That's too late. I like the 7-9:30 split. I think that tends to be a pretty good one. Yeah, that tends to be like good for clubs. But man, no, I've definitely done some shows that are like, oh, it starts at midnight, and it's like would rather don't do that. Why would you do that?
Why?
Who's gonna show up? Yeah, it's a Wednesday, Gary. Stop. Like that's
college kids. That's who shows up.
That's true. Yeah, and I certainly did. But no, it was fun, and I definitely still do times. And there's definitely still sets that I do that I'm like, God, might want to tighten that up, Ryan. Like, what's going on here, man? But it's been fun. I think I've found my own pace to it. I'm very much a storytelling comedian, which I think is nice.
Yeah.
And that's
I like that.
Yeah, that's kind of been where I think it's fun. Have you ever heard of Mike Birbiglia?
Yes.
He's like the king of it. And I remember seeing him when I was like 15 or 16. And I was like, yes, that is a great style. And then kind of from there, my family always told stories, and we always had weird family stuff. So I was like, I could learn how to tell stories. So yeah.
Well, and if you do it that way, it holds off whether they like it or don't like it for a little while, because they at least wait till you get through the story, and then they're like, yeah, that wasn't very good. Or you have a payoff.
It's true. And I think it's good for like setting up punchlines. I think the important part about storytelling comedy is like punching all the way through, like hitting your jokes throughout to keep people interested. But
That's
man,
true. Yeah, you wouldn't want to wait the whole time. Then everybody's just like, well, what's the point?
yeah, is it worth it? And I
Yeah.
think, but I think mostly, I think it's just nice to have essentially that interest built in as well. You know, sometimes you watch a really funny comedy set, and at the end, you're like, I know nothing about, like, I don't remember any of it. It was just fun, which is great, and that works for some people. But I like when people are like, oh, it's this story. Oh, it's this story. I have a story about the first time I ever went drinking was with my grandma and my mom, and and everyone knows that's the grandma and the mom story. You know what I mean? And so it's a kind of unique aspect to it. Yeah,
I like that. Do you have, like, everybody I think has that one comedy show or special or stand up that they watched, and it's been maybe decades, and they're still like, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
You have that person that you like, that's the one.
Brian Regan, Stupid in School, no question. Like, it was just, he's first off, he was clean. And since I grew up, you know, in a religious family, you know, they were always looking for clean stuff. And man, he was definitely the king of clean, and it has been for a while. And the way he writes, the way he put it together, and the voices he would do with it, that Stupid in School bit of like, oh, the big yellow one's the sun. I can still hear it in my head. So good.
Yeah.
I will say Gabriel Iglesias, like some of his early stuff was also at the time, like really before virality. You know, these were like, it's when YouTube was just getting off and everyone would be like, check out this video. And gosh, Gabriel Iglesias and still is. He's so good. And the voices he can do. I've seen him live, and I don't know if he's got a sound machine in his voice. Like, I don't know what's going on. It's incredible. But yeah, it's those are probably it. What about you? Anybody that you saw that you were like?
I got a couple that I didn't see them live, but just that have stuck with me most of my life. And it's probably because I was younger when I watched them. Robin Williams at the Met, hilarious. If you've never watched that, I mean, these are not clean. So
no, they are not. Yeah,
either of Eddie Murphy's early ones.
Yep.
Delirious,
Eddie Murphy Raw.
I remember going on a date to see Raw, and I was probably in middle school, and I had no clue what I was getting into. So funny though, embarrassing, but just hilarious. Those two or those three, and then surprisingly, if you've never seen Tim Allen's stand up from the 90s, his stuff is hilarious.
No, he really did start. It's cool to see like some of the people that you've seen start out as comics that like end up, you know, growing into other things. But no, he was supposed to be really. He was really good. I haven't seen a ton of his stuff. I've seen like clips, but nothing nothing too big. I want to say Kinnison was always interesting because he had such a wild.
Yeah, he was just so loud.
He was so loud, but it was almost one of those things where you're like, there's Sam. And I'm trying to think of.
Sadly, you know, when I was growing up, it was Bill Cosby.
Look, I get it. And especially like I never watched the Cosby Show because that was a little bit before my time. But, you know, for a lot of people, that was a lot of their childhood, you know, like
he was hilarious.
I mean, that's why. Yeah. It makes me think of like, kind of like for me, it was like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like reruns of that and the George Lopez show. Yeah. And so that'd be like, if like either of the, you know, like that came out about George Lopez, it'd be like, what the heck? And
I mean, we're all human. Everybody screws up and has a darker side, all of that. But that one, I think, and probably I'm not alone, it had to crush just millions of people because we grew up with America's dad.
Yeah. That is a weird thing where you do see people. And that also is an interesting thing that we've kind of like got to is, you know, is both a culture of like cancel culture, but also like, you know, about removing like bad parts of society. But it is just a weird thing where, you know, you never know who's going to be next. And honestly, it's kind of nerve-wracking as a content creator when you use like images or you use like people and you're like, oh, this person's great. And then like 2 days later, it's like that person murdered 8 puppies. And you're like, Jesus, like, I didn't know that. Like, and then you're the villain too. And it's such an interesting, it feels like we're living in a time where it's hard to endorse anything, you know, because you don't know. Careful. Yeah.
Because it's not even a thing where you're safe after a certain amount of time. It could be years later and it could come back and bite you.
No kidding. Yeah, it could be. I mean, for some people, it's decades, and it's just like all of a sudden, bam. And yeah, it's weird, man. It's a weird time, and it continues to get weirder.
We need it. We need a hero, a scam hunter.
A scam hunter, but of people's histories. I feel like so many people would hate me. You're ruining our childhoods. I'm trying to. But I guess I'm very excited, I guess, for like the future, because it makes me think that, if for decades later people will be like, oh, there he is, and it's like, what did he do? He sat mostly in his room and messed with scammers. Like, is he okay? He looks boring. He is boring, but it's fine. Like, yeah.
He's helping people in his own way.
Trying my best, I'm an enthusiastic amateur.
Well, I mean,
that's trying
all
to mess
jokes
with bad guys.
aside, it's a pretty nice service, because there's so many people out there that they can't afford to be scammed, and they're the ones that are scammed.
No. And man, you were hitting the nail on the head. It is, and it's always pushed to people in like foreign countries that are like, oh, you're scamming the rich. They're not going to feel it. You're scamming the rich. No, the people that are Elon Musk doesn't get scammed. You know what I mean? Jeff Bezos doesn't get scammed because they got too many fail safes and things like this. The people that are getting scammed are people that are desperate and that need something and that are already normally pretty poor. Yes. And it's just,
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. I've seen some ones that I'm just like, how did we get here? And then, at the same time, I bust up a scammer in New York, or not New York, Nigeria. And, I may have messed with one or two of them. And then at one point he goes, is this youth pastor Ryan? And I go, it is. But then I find out he's like a 19-year-old guy who's like parents don't care about him, and like he has no options. And it's like, dude, that sucks too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Not
like,
great either.
No. So I enjoy trying to like go after.
Let me send you a check right now.
Yeah, exactly. But then am I getting scammed further? Because these guys also still, that's the funny thing. These guys are still really good at making you feel bad. Yeah. But I know some of the circumstances on the ground there, and it's just not great. And so it's this weird combination of like, I want to be able to try to like push some weight towards fixing the source of the problem, not just, I'm not here to mess up already impoverished, Nigerians. Like that's not my game plan. I want to go to the people that set them up to do this, because there are those guys, and those guys are the worst. And yeah,
you're right. A lot of times the ones actually doing the scamming aren't the ones behind it. There's somebody behind them pulling the strings, and those are the ones that are tough to get to.
It absolutely is true. They're really hard. They're really insulated, and they're just far enough away that it's like, we didn't know about that. And it's like, yeah, you did. Yeah, but thankfully they always mess up. So, we got time.
We got time.
Yeah.
You're waiting.
Oh yeah. Like,
I got this image of you just crouched in your room waiting.
That's kind of how it is. Honestly, most of what I do is I do it on this computer. I've got two screens, and I set up like essentially like a sting on one screen, and then I play video games on the other screen as I wait for that sting to hit. And it's like, hey.
Ryan is offline. I got work to do.
Yeah, exactly. I got other things.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time. Your comedy is hilarious. And
so much, Mike.
You're providing a service too. You can't beat that.
Hey, trying to help in every way that I can. If you have the options, why not lean into it? So yeah.
Well, so before I let you go, one, you're welcome back anytime. Just send me a note. We'll get you back on. So
I'd love to. I think we'd have fun.
Yeah, we would. We should do. I'll get Brett, my son, to come on too, and we should just pick a topic and just talk about that.
It'd be a blast. That sounds like fun. Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah,
it's fun. That's all the interviews I've done. It's the ones where it's just me and Brett sitting around talking nerdy stuff. Those are the best.
Oh, look, we're in good company then. I am prepared for the nerdy deep dive.
Yeah. That's the best. But anything that you're working on right now that we can kind of keep an eye out for. You mentioned a special on TikTok, is if we go there, is it easy to find? How do we find that?
You can go to my website, youthpastorryan.com. It's actually, so Girlfriends and Girlfriends is available on Amazon and as well as Spotify for free if you want to listen to it there. Also, I do have a second special that I filmed, and we're getting ready to release that. So that's kind of in the works right now. But I actually signed a development team.
Where did you film at? Did you have an actual stage that you were on?
Yeah, so the first one was filmed at a stage in St. Louis, and the second one was filmed at Helium Comedy Club in St. Louis.
Oh, very
And
nice.
so it was fun. Both were fun. I had a great time. But the first one is Girlfriends and Girlfriends, which is just about like all the series of like life, just bad decisions and also dealing with the craziness. But honestly, the girlfriends that were in my life that made it all worth it because they had my back. And I think that that's really nice. And then the second one is How to Survive Plane Crashes because it feels like everything tries to kill me. And that one will come out shortly. And other than that, we actually are working on different scammer projects right now to see where those go. And hopefully we'll be bringing much more scam busting to you as soon as possible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the last thing before we go, I'd be shocked because your social media presence is pretty large. But if there's somebody out there that doesn't know where you're at, where can we find you on social media?
I think that is so sweet. I also feel very niche where I'm like, if you know me, you know me. But if you don't, you're like, who's the most generic white guy? What's going on here?
The best part, like when your people sent me the interview request, the best part about it was I already knew who you were.
Hey, I am honored.
Like, of course I'll have him on. I know Ryan.
Oh, I'm so honored. Well, youthpastorryan.com will have a list all the links, but Youthpastor Ryan on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and then Ryan Kelly Comedy on Instagram and Threads, but I don't really use Threads. Again, it's that
I know,
just text based. It freaks me
I
out.
haven't done anything with it yet. There's only so many that I have time to do.
I feel that where I'm like, I need a platform that I can just go post and it all goes. But
and then you're done. Then you're done.
Yeah. So if you want to see me,
Ryan, this has been terrific. Thank you so much. Definitely, let's figure something out. Let's do it again.
Awesome. Sounds great, Mike. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Hold on one second. You haven't listened to Ryan's social media channels or his stand-up, do yourself a favor, check him out. He is hilarious. Just really comes through with some great stuff. So please check him out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us again this week. Absolutely love that. We are closing in on 700 episodes. I can't believe it. You can find both of those, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. So please check us out there. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe if you check us out. It's free. Would love to have you as a fan, someone that watches. Be terrific. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Too Opinionated podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. Not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. Those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free, and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to IMDb, imdb.com, look up the Too Opinionated podcast, and just look around the page. Just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.